Okay, so I want to go over the last few tools that we covered. The first thing that we kind of went over was the cover. I really want to see something where you're playing around with the type treatment. It doesn't need to be as something as complicated where you're breaking up the text, unless that makes sense for your title. But ultimately, I do want to see something a little bit different, not just having text sitting, you know. Like so, like where it's kind of sitting against the line, and then just put on top of an image, right? Um, so I do want you to think about, what does all of the, caps look like? What does it look like when it's minuscule? What is it going to look like? Um, if it's left align, if it's right align. I do want to see something a little bit more different than just having straight up text. Um, the next thing was looking at the table of contents. The table of contents, remember, has to work together with the cover. Um, One of the things that we looked at was the menu, right? So if you ended up having an item here and this here, or maybe you had the name and the page number, right? Um, when you want to have this sitting here, you don't just use a bunch of spaces to push it across the um, the design, because you want to make sure that it's sitting here and you're able to kind of move it around, right? So what you do is you place your cursor right in between the two items that you're going to be using, hold down shift and push tab. So when you do that, it pushes whatever that item is all the way flush to the right hand side. So if we have to change the width of this, it changes with it. The next thing was adding in some sort of element that kind of connects the name to the item on the right hand side, right? So to do that, again, you're not going to sit there and just hit the period a bunch of times. What you're going to do is you're going to bring up your tabs, and then in here you're going to add in a leader, right? So we have this sitting here. We're going to add in a any kind of tab in here, and then we add in our dots. All right, you have to trigger something for that to come in, because if there is nothing there, nothing's going to show up. All right, so when you add this in, you can then add just a dot, and you can see it's tighter. You can add a space after it. You can add glyphs. So you add whatever it is in here. Once you have that in here, this can change. We can come up into here and say, all right, I want to now change this weight. So this way the item on the left and the item on the right can be bold, but I want the leader to be a light in this case. To change the page numbers. So when we look at our pages, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and because it's like this right now, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So ideally, you would not want to start numbering your document on the back cover. Even the cover isn't going to be page 1. You shouldn't be numbering page 1 for your inside front cover. There are plenty of times that you change the table content to page 1. To make that change, you're going to double click, be on the page itself that you want. Make sure it's highlighted in blue. You're going to go up to these 3 little lines, and you're going to go down to numbering and section options. When you pull this up, you can see right here it says automatic page numbering is what's going to be selected. You're going to select this and say start numbering at 1. Underneath is where you can control the style that it's going to be. So if you want to do letters, if you want to add in 3 zeros before, if you want Roman numerals, minuscule, you hit OK, and you can see that now changes on all of the pages. So that's where you would change the page numbers. When you're working on bullet text, you want to make sure, where did I put my bullet text? Right here. You want to make sure that you're using the bullet itself and not just hitting, option 8 and then moving on, because then this here drops underneath. You want it to look like this, where it's sitting on the left-hand side. All right. So when you end up having, let me get rid of these. Remove bullets. So here's our list. And then I'm going to select it. I'm going to go up to type. I'm going to go to bullets and then apply. All right. The other thing you're going to want to do, and it's kind of carrying over what we had discussed with the paragraph, is I seem to have lost my. There it is. So right in here, you can have this right here, and you can see that opens up the spacing in between each of the bullets, but it's not affecting the leading, right? So the leading is going to be the same all the way through, but we want to add a little bit of space, so this way then it's allowing this grouping of bullets to be together and this to be together, but then separated, all right? Because if it wasn't, and let's go back to here, then it's all kind of clumped together. So you just want to kind of make it a little bit easier for the person to read this. The last thing that we looked at was the list text on here. So if you end up having this as just one, there's a lot of dead space that happens in your layout. The list text is going to take on a completely different set of rules than what you've been applying to the body text. So when you increase these columns, it utilizes less space because it's getting rid of some of that negative space, that dead space basically. The one thing I want to see is what are you going to do to separate out all of this text. I want to see some sort of hierarchy in the way that you're laying this out. Once you have an idea and you want to then apply that to everything else, you can then use your eyedrop tool. So in here is going to be another author. You can select that text, it makes it bold. Now you can see that my eyedrop tool is now charged. So I can go in, click all of the different names, and it will automatically apply that to the authors. All right. So then even here I have the date here. Maybe I want it a little smaller. Maybe I also want to push it down slightly. And I change it to gray. So now if I select this, I can then apply that to all of the dates. Oops. All right. All right. So that is the list text. The other thing that we discussed briefly was using the. Let me go back to that. All right. So then we have this sitting in here. If you look at your FX and you look at your transparency options, we're going to go in here. We have the blending. So by normal, it's just going to be the solid text. If we come in here, you can see all these different options. If we allow multiply to happen, all of that kind of allows the background to come through. So these are different ways that you can allow the text to kind of become part of the background. This is very useful if you're going to be using texture on paper and kind of allowing the text to kind of work through that. Or let's say you have a sky and you have all this text sitting in here and you have clouds coming through and you kind of want to blend the text into the clouds. That's a way to do it. You don't have to go into Photoshop to have that happen. So that was it. That's everything that we had discussed last class, and hopefully it helps to wrap up this project. But good luck.